Basically, I'm going to play a tournament game pretty soon, and in the meantime, while I'm waiting for my opponent to get here, I'll be checking out and hopefully reviewing some aspects of the game that's going on right now, which is Olive versus Ben. Okay, we have a pie. Ever since Tumblebot, which is Barcode's bot, uh, got released, we started seeing a lot more of this kind of pie on size 6 boards, and by extension, whenever theory develops on size 6, then we also see similar things happening on size 8 and 10 as well. So what's going on here is that white is farther, like basically beyond the neutral line here. Oh wow, they're playing fast. Okay. So no longer is this orthodox where white was on something like f7 and blocking red's potential first move. Now white's making the assumption that it's okay even if red does that, and red decides not to. So red decides to play along the top line, and probably hoping for a triangle on g7 to play 2-stack. Then white would play up to play 2-stack on i5. Let's see if that happens. Alternatively, red might be able to try to block the triangle by playing on g5, but that doesn't. I haven't seen anyone do that yet. So, red played beyond the triangle, and white played this blocking move, cutting off g9 from g1. Makes a lot of sense. Now red has one chance to play f8, which then would put this 2-stack under attack, and then followed up by f9, giving both of these 1-stacks an option to parry by putting a second line of sight, allowing for the next move to be a third one, either one. But let's see if Olive goes for this. See if red goes for this. No. So now if white just plays on h9, basically now this g9 stack is unsavable. The problem with that is that at this early in the game, to lose a stack I think is pretty without any kind of compensation, especially a most central one like this. To g9, it's just one of the most central locations you can place, especially ones without seeing the neutral, which is pretty important for having nice vision. To lose a stack like that without compensation is pretty damaging to your position. Now, white has this. Now, how is red going to get into the lower left side? I mean, and white continues to threaten a move like i5, where it looks like white would just really be in control of the center at this point. And if you control the center so early, the other player will just have a hard time finding their way around your blockades into areas, and forcing them to place like small stacks, like a 1-stack that's already attacked on a8 or a 1-stack on j13. And these stacks, okay, you can play them, but it's easier to attack a 1-stack, especially one that's already attacked. So red's trying to set up for a potential like maybe 2-stack on j11, or trying to play some sneaky invasion here on e or f11. Let's see how white responds. Okay, with the threat on j9, Testingqwerty plays j5. So now this move can be parried, like for instance n9 or j11, or even a shield on j6 would work. Reinforcing. I think this is probably one of the worst options, because basically you're not adding. So I would say that like reinforcing a stack is really only good to do when you don't have other options, basically, in general, because when you put a new stack down on the board, you increase your influence, you make new lines of sight, and the same move can actually defend against an attack. Whereas reinforcing, placing on the same location, All it really does is defend against an attack. That's pretty much it. So now red, I bet, is wishing that they had a link along these diagonals here, because it would be so satisfying to play like a two-stack here, but unfortunately this is just not in the right line of sight. Okay, so now red is attacking this, and we're going to see probably a shield on J8. Or, yeah, okay, good. As I predicted. Because you don't want to make a crappy shield. You don't want to make like a shield that's just like a one stack that's easily attackable. But the cool thing that red can do now is play J6, which is cutting the shield. Like cutting the shield away from the defender. Getting in between the shield and the body that is under attack. Going underneath the shield with J6, cutting between these two, and then this one stack would basically be indefensible at that point. And he does it. This is actually a really interesting response by Testingqwerty, because now, when olive takes on J5, Testingqwerty gets G6, which is arguably probably even a better. Okay, so that was an interesting double attack by Testingqwerty. So it was kind of bait, because now he gets this more central stack. Although I do believe that Testingqwerty does feel a little bit over-concentrated, but because it's the center, and because his concentration is as a result of like basically capturing pieces, it's not concentrated on like one little corner. Like he's concentrated in the center, and that makes influence across the entire board. So it's a good type of concentration. This is a dangerous move because white can next play something like K10, and that would basically curl around and trap K9. So Olive is making this very nice. I actually believe that the shape here is really nice by Olive. These little knight moves here, or like these little bridge moves, I don't really know what to call them. It's kind of like a butterfly. So this move was actually putting a third line of sight on K10 so that white cannot capture on K9 or trap K9. And now this move on N8 is renewing the threat on K9 by threatening to place on K8, which would be a very like kind of symmetrically similar threat as the last one. Instead of placing on K10, curling around 3 lines of sight on this 2-stack, you'd have 3 lines of sight, the third one coming from this direction, K8. And so red can probably play on K8. It seems like the only, or maybe L8, another viable option. And that begins to put a threat on J8, which actually might be interesting because white doesn't really have a good defense. For instance, if you play K8 here, there's only one white line of sight on J7, so a move shielding would be suicidal. And so white would be forced to kind of give up this stone. It doesn't really matter that much though, because this is a strong looking group, and this is a 3-stack, which appears to be kind of a nice exterior for white's shape here, overarching kind of network on this area of the board. So it's unlikely that red will be able to make much progress past or beyond J8. Which might be the reason why he plays instead G3. But yeah, I think that it's kind of kill or be killed in this situation, because now white plays K8, and when, at least if red was to capture J8, then K9 would be saved. K9 would be safe, because this would be red and this would be red, and this would all connect this top group to this lower group here, and then this N1 or N8, this 1-stack, would be pretty much in danger, and you have this nice big red group. Instead, after playing G3 and then white follows up with K8, now it looks like white will get to connect, maybe get to connect N8 all the way to this big central group, creating a wedge between red's pieces, dividing and conquering. At this point, it looks pretty grim for red. White has a command of the center. has several more pieces in terms of material, and a lot more influence, and um, more 3 stacks. Red doesn't have any 3 stacks, and higher numbers of stacks in general. Like white only has 3 1-stacks. Red has mostly 1-stacks. So basically, and I wouldn't typically say that, talk about that. What you see, might think like, what does it matter? But I think the important part here is that if one player already has more influence on the board, you might think about relative compensation. Like, okay, well, maybe they have just so many 1-stacks. That's the reason why they have more influence, and the stability of the stacks is the kind of the trade-off. But in this case, Testingqwerty's got like taller stacks and also more influence and more pieces in general. So this move on I11 is just cutting, again, just cutting in between these different groups, trying to make it difficult for red to unify their forces and take any control of any territory. You can see that basically white doesn't really bother to spend time capturing the neutral, because white already has so many lines of sight that it doesn't really need to do that. It wouldn't really benefit white very much to capture the neutral at this point. It just kind of remains as a captive in white's area. And now after creating this kind of central monster, white will just continue to expand outward, vigorously attacking anything that enters this lower left zone. It does look like it might be a kind of a nice shape here, but both of these 1-stacks are pretty vulnerable, I think. Although that might change later. Like right now, they're not under attack, so red has chances to, create some moves in Sensei that might give these 1-stacks opportunities to parry later on, both having each one line of sight on them to begin with. So all you need is like one move in Sensei, and then later on you get a chance to parry if they get attacked. So something like this, L8. Okay, that's actually not a good move. Any more? Okay. E10. E10 threatens I10. And I'm going to see, let's see if Testingqwerty parries this attack, and he does, yeah. With an attack itself. So if you can parry an attack with an attack, then really more power to you. And now red's really feeling the loss of K9 here, because generally if such a situation were to occur now, previously, this would all be red, and this wouldn't be under attack. And red would feel no obligation to defend now. Question is, will Olive make a comeback? Anything is possible. But right now, I think white is probably going to make a capture on F11, because it looks massive. But problem at this point, it seems like probably white thinks that white is so far ahead that they don't need to be super aggressive. But at this point, we're going to see some attacks being levied against these stones. I think that this was a way to be careful, because if the capture happened at that moment, red might be able to set up a capture on d5. Never mind, I guess they're going to do it anyway. But maybe now that this 3-stack is here, it's easier to lose d5, knowing that you have like a strong edge shape.